Fanzone, united by the game, powered by MWOS World of Sport.
A grand welcome to Fanzone, your latest destination for everything PSL related. We're bringing you in-depth analysis, unmatched coverage, and a fan-fueled passion for the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League. In the studio, we'll be discussing everything from the biggest clashes to the rising stars, plus highlights across Zimbabwean sport. If it's happening, we are talking about it. I am your host and presenter, Sips, and joining me today for the very first episode of a Fanzone are these men here sitting on the set today. So without wasting any more time, let me introduce our guests. So starting closest to me on my left, first of all, hi Lawrence. This is Lawrence Mangenje. Hi Lawrence, how are you doing today?
I'm good, and you, Sips? I'm happy to be part of Fanzone.
Well, thank you for joining us. Lawrence is an award sports journalist, and he will be joining us for all his insights and providing us with details of the PSL. Next to him is Marc Pozzo. Hi Marc, how are you doing today?
Sibs, good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Marc Pozzo is also a sports radio personality. You actually might recognize his voice. He does the sports update on ZFM Stereo. And furthest from me, but last and not least, it is Lloyd Mutasa. Hi Lloyd, how are you doing today?
Fine, Sips. Thanks. I'm happy to be around.
Well, Lloyd is the MWOS FC Head Coach who are currently sitting at the top of the league table in the PSL. Well, with the introductions being done, let us head on over right now to the Matchday 12 Roundup, which is the next segment. So the Matchday 12 Roundup has come along. It was a really, really good weekend of footy. We saw a lot more victors and losers this time around as compared to Matchday 11. But the first match I want to look at and just have a discussion with all of you is the Harare Derby, which was probably the headlining match of the weekend due to it being the Harare Derby, but also a little bit of a controversy. But before we get to that, let's discuss the match. Lawrence, your thoughts on that 1-1 draw at Rufaro Stadium?
Well, we obviously wanted to find out whether or not Harare is green or blue. That was the idea. But unfortunately, the two sides had to settle for a share of the spoils. But it was a very, very good game. It was a very good game of football. Dynamos on a rough patch, equally so Cape United. But I think a draw was a fair result. A brilliant goal from Kundai Benyu. The crowd was a good crowd. An estimated 10,000 people paid to watch the game. So I think the Harare Derby is still alive.
I think so too. But Paz, I want to ask you, with the form that Dynamos are having and Caps United are having, was the draw, was that a surprise at all, or is that something you were kind of expecting from either side?
I sort of thought before that this game was going to be a draw. I actually thought it was going to be a goalless draw, to be actually 100% correct. I just thought both these teams that you've seen them, they have been the flowers of Zimbabwe football. I mean, as Lawrence was saying, it's a Harare Derby, blue and green. It is the two big sides, and suddenly you're looking at two big sides that are really nowhere to be found in the top part of the table. They're both languishing at the bottom, and I think they both had an ambition to go and try and get 3 points, and it didn't happen. And look, at the end of the day, I think a result is a fair call for that game, but I certainly didn't think there were going to be any goals. I think both teams were going there to try too hard.
I actually perfectly agree with you there, Marc Pozzo. Dynamos, throughout the season, they've struggled to score goals, so I was actually very surprised that it was a 1-1 draw. But Lars, I also want to ask you, with the season that Dynamos is having, why do you think they've had such a drastic fall from shame as to what they've been normally?
Look, there are many problems at Dynamos, some of which can be attributed to the leadership. I think the club is suffering from a leadership crisis. The technical department, the first one, his namesake, Lloyd Mutasa, before he was sacked, I don't think he got enough support in terms of financial funding from the executive. I also don't think the majority of the players at Dynamos are worthy of the Dynamos badge. So that is a problem in its own. They have struggled, like you rightly said, they are languishing in the relegation matrix. So, look, I think the coming in of Saul Chaminuka, they are calling it a soul-searching mission. I'm not really sure if what that actually means, but what they simply think is him coming on board will obviously better their fortunes in the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League. So he is trying to revive their season. So starting with a draw and actually scoring is actually a positive step, because look, Dynamos had scored 2 goals prior to yesterday's game. The other one being an own goal. So actually Manu Jalai, by converting from the penalty spot, is the second Dynamos player to score this season, which is strange for a big club like Dynamos.
Yeah. And so just touching on the topic of the new Dynamos coach, Lloyd, I want to look to you. You know, if you were the Caps United coach and you were heading into that match, Dynamos having just elected a new head coach, Saul Chimunika, earlier that week, how important is it to, as an opposing team, to try and take advantage of a new coach and of a weakened team? How important is it?
Yeah, people, they assume that it's easy to play against a team that has got a new coach, but I would want to believe that when the other team engages a new coach, he brings in a lot of energy to the players. Every player would then want to prove to the new coach that I'm good enough to play, and by so doing, the opponents will get a bite.
Yeah. Well, Dynamos at the moment in the PSL standings, sitting at 16th, Caps on 14th. And just the second match I would like to take a look at, which happened over Matchday 12, was Manica Diamonds versus Scotland FC. So Scotland previously in Matchday 11 had just taken Zimbabwean 2-0, which was a sort of surprising result. I'd expected a draw, but nonetheless Scotland won 2-0, and then they travelled over to Sakuba Stadium against Manica Diamonds, where they were held to a 0-0 draw. Larry, your thoughts on this match and the result?
I think it was obvious that game was going to be a draw to begin with. I honestly didn't have the confidence that Scotland were going to collect maximum points, based on the fact that they've played 9 of their 12 games at Rufaro Stadium. They've only played 3 games out of Harare, away from Rufaro, and they've won none of those. So that speaks volume in terms of their attribute on the road, that is. So put simply, I think it was a result that I expected. That is, it was going to be a draw. Though I did expect some goals of some sort.
And then looking at you, Lloyd, a 0-0 draw. So after Matchday 12, this is the 6th consecutive draw for Manica Diamonds, or 6 in this 2025-26 season. As a coach, yes, drawing, you do walk away with 1 point, but obviously you want the maximum. Manica Diamonds have struggled to find that cutting edge. And as a coach, who has played Manica Diamonds and drew as well at Mangenje Stadium, what do you think needs to happen in that Manica Diamonds side for them to have that final cutting edge to see them through?
Yeah, I think Manica Diamonds playing at home and not scoring goals has been their Achilles. And I think they need to work too much with their striking with their strikers, so that probably they break the defense of the opposition, because they've been drawing a lot of games at home and where they are, and with the expectation of the home crowd. Much of the things they do happen when you're at home. If you cannot please the home fans, you're bound to lose a job one day or the other.
And just going back to Larry's comment, Mark, I'm going to look to you. Larry said it was an obvious result that it was going to be a draw, since Scotland have only played 3 games outside of Harare. Surely, do you not think, after coming off the 2-0 win of Zimbabwe, do you not think they would have been able to at least squeeze 1 goal into that back net?
Absolutely. I certainly thought that they would make it back-to-back wins 2 weeks in a row, but obviously it wasn't to be. But I've found a trend, which, and I'm sure Lawrence might agree with me here, is Zimbabwe football. Our teams are all struggling to find the back of the net. Mm-hmm. If you look at a compilation of our results every single week, just take Matchday 12, take the Moors Kwekwe United game out of the equation, because there was 4 goals there. But if you count the number of goals that were scored in the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League this last weekend, you can count them on your hands. And it's something that I don't know where it's going wrong. Maybe Coach Lloyd can help us and find out where the problem is with scoring goals in these teams in the Premier League. I mean, you look at leagues throughout the world, there's a feast of goals every single week. There's a feast of goals, and every single week it's 0-0, 1-0, 1-1. It's a trend that's starting to show in Zimbabwe football, which for me I think is a worry. Do we not have the right strikers playing for these elite clubs? I don't know.
Yeah. You know, Lloyd, to put you on the spot, maybe can you answer that question just from a coach's perspective?
Yeah, I would want to believe that, since the era of my mentor, Sunday Marimo, people in Zimbabwe, they believe that teams are built with a strong defense. And the majority of us, we're still taking it that way. We are very cautious in terms of our defense, but hoping that probably if you go up there, you'll get one or two. But if you look at what is happening now in Europe, you look at Liverpool, you look at Manchester City, you look at Barcelona, they scoring teams. They prefer to go up there and look for goals rather than sitting back and play an open game. Today's fans, modern football, they really like people to have goals, matches teams to score goals, and but with us here in Africa, I would want to believe that we're still too cautious about defending, not going forward, and hope that probably if you get a chance or two in a game, you might utilize and get it right. But I think we need to change. We need to change our act and go for an attack. You know, we always enjoy watching. Me, I'm a Liverpool fan, but I really enjoy watching even Manchester City playing because they play an open game. They want to score goals, and fans would want to see more goals than probably nil or draws.
Yeah, and I think also just to maybe add to your question, maybe answer it. I think also a lot of the teams in the PSL are struggling to find their goal scorer, struggling to find their go-to person. We know for MWOS FC, it's Billy Veremu, who's just scored his 7th goal after Matchday 12. We know in Tel 1 it's Washington Navaya, those two who are topping the scoring charts. Laurie, what would you say to that, where teams are struggling to find their scorer and their go-to person to make something happen?
Look, there was some point in time when Norman Wapeza claimed that there's a goal-scoring crisis in Zimbabwe. Whether that is correct or not simply is up for debate. Maybe Coach Lloyd can be the best to actually help us with his technical expertise there. Do we really have a goal-scoring crisis in Zimbabwe, Coach? And is it a case of us not having lethal strikers, or it's about our way of playing football? Because as a country to begin with, what is our style of play?
Yeah, Lawrence, I would want to believe that the problem is we still believe that strikers are the ones who score goals, and by so doing we exert a lot of pressure to the strikers. Football is a team job, and a division of labor needs to take center stage, and we need to change our dynamics. We need to let these youngsters know that no, it's not only about strikers who score goals. I would want to believe during our era, you could see Joe Mugabe scoring more goals, Moses Chunga not playing as a number 9 but as a midfielder as well, scoring more goals. It depends with the dynamics, with the way how you play football, but I would want to believe it's easier for midfielders and other players to score goals than the center strikers.
Yeah, well, the final score of that Manica Diamonds and Scotland game ended in a 0-0 draw, and with that, Scotland keep their place in second on the league standings. Manica Diamonds move back down to 11th. Disappointing result for a team of that caliber. You would hope that they'll be a little bit closer up to Greenfield, ZPC, Tel 1. But now let's head into our next section, which is the MWOS PSL Predictor Update. So the MWOS PSL Predictor leaderboard is heating up after Matchday 12. First off, a huge congratulations to Icon 505. Second week in a row, he has retained his number 1 spot. Normally, up until about now, it's been him and Icewave who have had alternating positions. But after Matchday 11, where Kwekwe had to abandon the match, there was a shake-up in the leader table, and Icewave eventually moved down. But good congratulations to Mutasa, who's still there and still pushing. But guys, please put in your predictions. Somebody has to take down Icon 505. Heavy is the head who wears the crown. So Icon, good luck to you, and make sure he keeps taking on that first spot. But everyone else, chip in. Let's all give Icon a run for his money.
Yeah, Icon seems to be doing the business, and I think it's for everybody not to forget to do their predictions every single week, so they can try and topple him from the top of his castle, because he's starting to get to grips with being at the top of the leaderboard and enjoying it. So let's hope there's a change in the leaderboard come Matchday 13.
Yeah, well, he's definitely eyeing out that Suzuki Espresso. But just looking more, please join the MWOS PSL Predictor. It is a fun way to engage with your family. We've now started private leagues, so if you don't think you can quite top Icon or Icewave or Vamatsa at the top of the table, there's always an opportunity for family bragging rights, office bragging rights. I know in the Fanzone studio we have a very friendly private league going on. Unfortunately, I'm not at the top, but still moving on forward. So please head on over to fanzone.co.zw and join the MWOS PSL Predictor. But that brings us to the end of the segment. Let us now go to looking ahead, which will be this weekend for Matchday 13. Alright, welcome back. We are now looking ahead for Matchday 13, which is this weekend. Our first match we want to look at is the Ngezi versus Dynamos game. So, Larry, we've just seen Dynamos draw to Caps United. Ngezi have actually, after Matchday 2, they've gone a bit quiet. They upset Scotland in a 1-0 defeat. But since then, they've slowly edged down towards the middle section. They're on 7th at the moment. What do you think is going to happen this game between Ngezi and Dynamos?
Look, like you rightly said, Ngezi have not been themselves in the past 2 weeks. I'm not really sure what is happening, but if you look at it from a close angle, their coach Tekshua Chiragui was about to leave for Caps United, and then the deal fell through at the 11th hour. That speaks volume of what's happening at the club, because if you look at a coach wanting to equally to go to another club, it simply means things are not working as you would have expected. And then going into the Dynamos game, I think it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be an interesting game in the sense that this will be Socha Minuka's second game in charge. He managed to salvage a point during the Harare Derby, which is not a bad result for the Dynamos standards at the moment. So I do expect Ngezu to get a result, though, in that game.
Yeah, I was about to ask that to you, Pozzo. Obviously, Dynamo is travelling and will be the away team. How do you think they will fare in this Ngezi matchup?
I think I'm going with what Lawrence says. I think despite Ngezi having a few problems, I don't think Dynamo's problems are going to be solved from Matchday 12 to Matchday 13. So I think they've got still a lot of work to do. For me, I think Ngezi maximum points, without doubt. Yeah. Regardless of the issues that they might have internally or their sudden lack of form, as it may be. But I think Ngezi maximum points.
And just to be a bit more specific, what do you think the scoreline is, your prediction, said here on this stage?
Well, I've been talking about goals in the Castelaga Premier Soccer League, so I'm going to say that Ngezi are going to get 3 points and they're going to win 1-0.
1-0. And for you, Larry?
Yeah, obviously, like I've said, I think Ngezi have to win that game. And then in terms of, I expect them to score at least 2 goals being at home.
Oh, so brave decision with 2 goals. I think me personally, I'll be a bit more reserved and go for a 1-goal game in favour of Ngezi. But Lloyd, looking at you now, I'm not sure how much you have been observing of Ngezi. It's still a fixture that MWOS FC has to play, but when that time does come, how are you feeling about Ngezi and the way they're playing at the moment?
Yeah, as a coach, I would want to play against a team that is at their top. Ngezi is a tricky team. They've got quality in their ranks. A very good coach, and they have depth in their team. And I'm sure we're going to Ngezi first. They'll be playing at home, but the good part is we've been there. We used that stadium as our home ground too, so we brothers there. It's gonna be a tight match. I know. There are no easy fixtures in the elite league, and would expect a tight game. But obviously, as a coach, you would want to come out victorious.
All right. So the general consensus here that I'm seeing is that Ngezi will walk away with the maximum 3-pointer. But if we look at the next game, which is Caps United versus Zimbabwean, Caps at home. Mark, how do you think this game will fare? Caps, they've lost 5 games, Zimbabwean only 2. However, they have struggled to score away. That will be the niche factor in this upcoming match. What do you think?
Caps United lost 5 games. I think they're going to make it 6 games. I think despite Zimbabwean not finding the back of the net, they are the reigning champions, as it were. Away from home, again, another low-scoring game, but Zimbabwean maximum points 1-0.
And for you, Larry?
Yeah, that's a very, very tricky game. Zimbabwean mini Caps United. The owner Simbandoro is a Caps United fan, well documented. And it's the previous games have always been tricky. They've produced draws. Zimbabwean at some point, they won 1-0, if I'm not mistaken. But like Mark said, they are the defending champions. And I expect them to get a result against Caps United.
Yeah, I think they will as well. A 1-goal, maybe 0-0, but at least a 1-goal win in favor of Zimbabwean. But just the last match that we want to discuss, I know this one might be a little bit awkward for you, Lloyd, but it is Greenfield versus MWOS FC. Greenfield at home. They're sitting in the middle of the table, around about 8 there. A couple of draws as well, 2 losses. Lloyd, how are you feeling for that match?
Yeah, I remember I was with Greenfield. I took them to the Elite League, and now that I'm with MWOS, and I'm saying we played Dynamos. I was at Dynamos before. We beat Dynamos. We played Teo 1. I was with Teo 1 before. We drew with Teo 1. We played FC Platinum. I was with FC Platinum before, and we drew. So from the teams that probably I was there before, the 3 that I've talked about, we had 2 draws and one win. It's gonna be an emotional game playing Greenfield at Greenfield Arena, but another tough encounter, and they haven't lost there, if my memory serves me well, this year around. But we would want to try as much as we can to try and break the jinx. You always want to be the first to break the jinx, and remember them as well. They would want to break the jinx. We haven't lost a match, and they would want to do the same. It's gonna be a totally tough encounter, and probably the team that prepares well will come out victorious.
Yeah, I think with that home ground advantage, that will be something they'll be looking to use. But I think also another strategic point which Greenfield should use is their location. Teams travel long distances. It's a long travel to get there. So I think on that next match day, they'll have to look to put pressure on MWOS FC to maybe take advantage of that player fatigue. Mark, I can see you sort of nodding your head. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, look, I think listening to what Lloyd has to say, I think it's going to be a tough game for MWOS. I think travelling to Greenfield, as we all quite rightly said, it's a long way to go. They've got a good home record, but let's look at the positives. The positives are MWOS are currently leading the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League. They scored 4 goals against Kwekwe last weekend. For me, that little trend, I think, can carry on. I think MWOS will go there. I think they'll have a tough game, but I think they will get a result there. It might not be a pretty result, but I think they will get maximum points. If you ask me for a scoreline, I'm not too sure, but I think MWOS will get the points, but it's going to be a tough match for them.
I don't know, are you feeling brave enough to maybe provide a prediction? I know, maybe Lloyd, you might want to block your ears, but would you think, what do you think,
Well,
Larry?
firstly, I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. Look, he was a Greenfield. He went for a season without defeat. Correct, coach?
Sure.
They love him a lot there. You know, there was a time when he was still there. I went there to do a story when the team was still in Division 1. They love him a lot. And it's quite sad that as much as they love him, he's supposed to plot their own downfall by handing them their first defeat in the league. The travelling factor is going to be detrimental as far as the game and how it goes. Whatever it is that happened, I simply don't expect MWOS to lose that game. Him knowing the environment, knowing the atmosphere there, he will prepare the game better. My prediction would definitely be a draw.
It'll be a draw.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, guys, the Matchday 13 PSL Predictor, it's live. Go place your bets right now. Also, comment down below on any of the fixtures we have commented on. Even in the comment section, anything you think which is interesting, we love reading about your comments. I know I do on the PSL Predictor, but go place your predictions. Don't miss out. And Icon 505, watch out. You have got a swarm of enemies coming for your number 1 spot. But with this section being done, let us now head on over to our next segment, which is Beyond the Pitch. So looking into this segment, Beyond the Pitch, this is now where we take a break from the PSL and we look at other sport that is happening around Zimbabwe, whether our national teams are involved or whether it's locally. First off, we're going to talk about our cricket, which is our Chevrons. The men's national team are currently in England prepping for a one-off test against the English side this Thursday. So, Paz, how are you feeling about this new Zimbabwean team under the leadership of Justin Salmons? You know, we've just come off one win against Bangladesh. We lost the second test, but out of 2, we won 1, lost 1. How are you feeling for the Chevrons in this lineup?
Yeah, look, I think if you look back at that test series in Bangladesh, you can take a lot out of it. We won the first test well, but then we lost the second test very badly.
Yeah.
So now we've got totally different conditions. We are preparing to face a good team in England. Incidentally, I was looking this morning. Zimbabwe this year play 11 test matches. And I don't think Zimbabwe have played 11 test matches in a year for a very, very long time. So India, they play 11. Australia play 11 as well. So we have a lot of test cricket. So I'm saying we have a lot to learn this year because we have a new coach. We've got some young up-and-coming players. I think Brian Bennett is an exceptional player. Phenomenal. I think he is the next Brendan Taylor, if you're looking at that era. But I think Zimbabwe have got a tough game against England at Trent Bridge on Thursday. The ball will move around a bit. We can safely say we've got a decent seam attack in Blessing Mazarabani and Richard Ngarava. I think if they can spearhead our bowling attack and Zimbabwe bowl first, win the toss, bowl first and try and get a few early wickets, settle the nerves a little bit, I think we might sort of get into the game. But it's going to be a tough test match. I can tell you that now. I don't think Zimbabwe can win it, and I'm being pretty honest. But I would like to see Zimbabwe give an account of themselves. I would like to see them play Test cricket for 5 days, and let it go to the last day. If we win it, well, fantastic. But we're playing against a very, very good England side. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, just one thing Zimbabwe have struggled with in the Test setup is scoring runs. So we've touched on Brian Bennett. He's in really good shape and form. He hasn't quite been able to tick on over to the century side, but he's definitely got a couple of 50s under his belt, which has been very helpful. But just looking now, Sikandar Raza has joined the squad again, coming back from that Pakistan Super League. But now also Ben Curran, who came from England. He's obviously a Zimbo, brother to Tom and Sam. I'd like to see him maybe step up to the plate when it comes to batting, especially now in England, in conditions he is familiar with.
Yep.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, look, I think Zimbabwe must stick with that opening combination. Ben has struggled on and off with runs. He's been a little bit in and out of sorts, but I think the conditions will suit him better in the UK, and I think he's due another big score, and it wouldn't surprise me if he does it against England.
Yeah. Well, looking across, speaking of Blessing Muzarabani, you mentioned him in the bowling attack. He has just got the call-up to the Royal Challengers Bangalore in the IPL. If you do not know what that is almost the cream of the crop when it comes to T20 cricket. He's replacing Lungi Ngidi, who is a South African seam bowler, but a really, really good result, Pozzo. I can't remember the last time, actually I do, it was Sikandar Raza.
Correct.
Who was involved in the IPL 2 or so years ago, but even before then, it's good to see Zimbabwe finally getting its recognition for its cricket.
Yes, and when I saw the breaking news today that he had been called up to RCB, and that just goes to show that he is being watched as a player. And obviously Andy Flower, who is the head coach at Royal Challengers Bengaluru, has always had a soft spot for Blessing and knows his talent and what he is capable of. So I just hope that he stays fit in the test match. I hope he has a good test match. I hope he gets onto that aeroplane, gets to India, and in the final, the crucial week basically of the IPL, because RCB are currently sitting second, so they'll be in the mix for hopefully a final. And I just hope he goes there and really does well, for not only for himself and for his confidence, but for Zimbabwe cricket as well, because I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get any other players in the IPL this year. I certainly thought between Blessing Muzarabani and Richard Ngarava, they would have got call-ups to this year's IPL, being our two seam bowlers. Yes, Sikandar Raza is had a commitment with the Pakistan Super League. He's played IPL. We all know what he could do. But it's our young and up-and-coming players, and so I really would like to see Blessing do well at RCB in the final week of the IPL.
All right, and we now take a look at our rugby, which is going to be happening. Looking locally first, this weekend is the opening weekend at Old Georgians of the Harare Men's Division, number 1, and also the Women's. So, reigning champions OH, can they do 4 in a row? Pozzo, they've been very strong with the likes of pretty much the Sables team being split between OH and Harare Sports Club, which are normally the 2 final contenders. What do you think is going to happen this year between either side?
Look, I think they will continue to dominate the domestic league again this year. I think Old Georgians have been a little bit disappointing over the last couple of seasons. I'm hoping that they will improve, but yeah, obviously these domestic matches will also help our players playing in the domestic league starting this weekend, that are also going to play for the Sables in a week's time or so in Zambia in that return test match, where obviously we defeated Zambia pretty well at Harare Sports Club. I'm not too sure how many of the Sables will be allowed to play in the provincial games this weekend ahead of next weekend's test match. But yeah, look, I'm looking forward to a new season of provincial rugby, and hopefully some new talent as well that can be nurtured up into the national Sable side.
Yeah, but as you mentioned the Sables, they will be travelling next weekend on the 31st of March, where they'll be playing Zambia in the return leg. As you said, first test match of 2025, they played Zambia at Harare Sports Club. Dominant victory, 70 points to 15. And Zambia currently sitting in the world rankings at 67th, Zimbabwe at 27. So I think it will be some sort of a similar result.
Yeah. No, I think so.
I think so as well. But what is most important is that these matches between Zambia and Botswana are preparation for the Africa Trophy. Zimbabwe, the reigning champions, but this year Namibia will be gunning for that title, because this year there's now the 2027 Sydney World Cup qualifiers on the line. So all that preparation is being done for that. How are you feeling for all those preparations and for that tournament?
Look, I think we will once again come up against our old nemesis, being Namibia. Let's just hope that we can just knock that on the head finally and knock them off their perch, as it were. I think Zimbabwe, what they need to do, regardless of they're playing Zambia, as you said, they won by 70 odd points to 15 in that last Test match. For me, I say just go out there, get as many points on the board, get as many bonus points or whatever it takes, and just keep that momentum going and be ready, because they are going to have some very challenging games very soon. Very soon.
And just a quick question, imagine you are Pete Bernardi, the head of the Sabres coach. After such a big victory, do you play your strongest side, or do you maybe give other people that are in your training squad a turn in this return match?
Play your strongest side. Keep playing your strongest side, because that is going to be your formula team. That is going to be your winning team. When you go and play against Namibia, you want to have your strongest team. So the more that they can play together, I think the better for the team itself.
Well, that brings us to the end of Beyond the Pitch, and we head into our final segment, which is Rumours and Rubbish. Alright, so in this topic of rumours and rubbish, it has been given this name specifically because we're talking about maybe rumours and rubbish. So anything said in this segment is purely for fun, opinion-based, and should be taken with a pinch of salt. The first thing we're going to discuss is the Dynamo fans boycott. And so looking ahead to you, Lloyd, you've played for the Dynamos before. Have you ever, as a player, experienced a boycott, or maybe a place where fans didn't turn up?
Yeah, boycott in respect of players wanting to boycott matches because of unpaid bonuses. I did experience it. But boycott in respect of fans coming into the stadium, no, I didn't come across such. And if you look at what happened this week, we had a sizable crowd who came to watch the derby match as compared to some of the matches Dynamos was playing before. So I would want to believe that such matches, as a coach or as a player, you would need the stadium to be filled with supporters. It helps players do well when they're being motivated by their supporters,
And so Lloyd has just said, as a player, as a Dynamo's old player, he's never experienced a boycott of fans. So for the Harare Giants, the Dynamos, for the fans to be so upset and for a drastic decision to be made to boycott the Dynamos games, Larry, explain to us why there's such frustration from the Dynamos fans.
Well, the Dynamos fans, like I've indicated earlier, they are not happy with their leadership and the manner in which the club is being run. Certain decisions they feel do not go in a way that grows the club and that further grows the Dynamos brand. He has played for Dynamos, he has coached Dynamos, he knows what Dynamos is. So it's a simple case of the fans not recognizing the club anymore. I don't know if I'm to put it correctly, Coach. It's a case of the fans, the frustration towards the leadership of the club, the board chairman, that is Bernard Mariet Lusengo, as well as the Moses Maungani, the lead executive. The fans are simply not happy with how things are being done at Dynamos. They feel as though the club is not being led in the right direction as far as trying to bring back the glory days in the blue half of the capital. So I do understand their complaints, but I was very, very skeptical in terms of whether or not the boycott was going to be a success. Because look, no Dynamos fan wants to lose to Cape United. So it's a case of them wanting to experience it firsthand. So obviously, some of them were going to go in. That is what happened yesterday.
And Mark, Larry mentioned earlier on that despite there being a call for a boycott, there were still 10,000 tickets sold at Rufaro Stadium. So my question to you is, was that boycott successful if 10,000 tickets are still being sold?
No, I don't think it was successful. I think if it was to be successful, there would have been a couple of thousand people there, if that. So I don't think it worked. And as Lawrence quite rightly said, there were people that wanted to experience it firsthand. You're playing against Caps United, your arch rival. You're going to come to the ground, regardless of whether you have an issue with the executive or whatever it might be. So to sum it up, no, I don't think it was successful.
I think I agree, but also disagree. So yes, in terms of the numbers, the boycott failed. But if your fans have decided to boycott your own team and all the way to the point and their frustrations led to boycotting, should that not be considered as a loss to the club, Larry?
Yes, it might have been. But look, the problem with this boycott was, the medium of communication used. Not every Dynamos fan uses the internet or is on Facebook. You understand? There's just one Dynamos fan who listens to the radio and knows that there's a game on Sunday. There's just one who watches TV or maybe reads the newspaper. So I think there was some kind of complacence on the part of the people who were leading the boycott into believing that every Dynamos fan uses the internet or is on Facebook. So that's for me, that's partly why I didn't. I agree with Mark. It wasn't a success at all.
Well, let us know in the comments. We love and cherish your thoughts and opinions. Did the Dynamos boycott, was it a success or was it a fail? But just to wrap up, Larry, there were 2 incidents that happened over this weekend. Please tell us about them and what happened.
Yeah, 2 very unfortunate incidents, which for me are bad advertisement for the local game. During the Central Region Soccer League match between Shabani Mine and Gwanda Pirates at Maglas, there was a lot of violence there. You know, violence is obviously a bad advertisement for the game. As a matter of fact, a Shabani Mine fan was stabbed, and that obviously led to the abandonment of the game in the 68th minute. So Zifa have actually released a statement condemning that, and the investigations are ongoing, because I'm being told that people were stuck in the stadium up to about 7 p.m., which is not good for the game. And the other one was between Wangu Mazodze and FC Hunters. Look, Wangu Mazodze, there was a female fan, who threw a bottle containing urine to John Nyikadzino. John Nyikadzino is the head coach of Hunters, but he's also a former coach of Wangu Mazodze. So I think the manner in which they parted ways was not amicable. They still have some kind of issues with the coach. That is the reason why they did what they did. But put simply, those 2 incidents are a very, very bad advertisement of the game.
Yeah, well, 2 very unfortunate incidents on looking on the Zimbabwe local soccer leagues. But now that brings us to the end of the first episode of the Fanzone Podcast. Once again, I just want to thank our guests, Lawrence Mangenje, Marc Pozzo, Lloyd Mutasa, who have been sitting with us in the Fanzone. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to make sure you are up to date with all the updates. But also head on over to our website, fanzone.co.zw, where you can really dig your teeth into daily sports articles, the PSL standings, be updated with live scores. But that is us from the Fanzone studio, and we will catch you guys next episode.
Fanzone, united by the game, powered by MWOS World of Sport.